This is Robert Sinn at the January 2024 Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver. I'm with Darcy Marud, CEO of Western Exploration. Darcy, it's a real pleasure to be with you today. Your presentation was pretty thorough, and you got to the point in the opportunity in WEX shares. Can you tell us about your experience in the mining industry?
Yeah, sure. First of all, Robert, thanks for the invite. We really do appreciate it. As a small company, it's important that we have supporters like yourself supporting the company. So a little bit about myself. I'm a geologist by training. I've been in the industry for almost 40 years now. Matter of fact, started my career just down the street on the corner of Pender and Granville here in Vancouver with Homestake Mining. I was fortunate enough to work with a very good group there of professionals, and it led to an opportunity for me to go to Chile in 1991 to work on some assets that Homestake had. And I stayed in Chile after that for about 10 years. I moved over to Meridian Mining Company, and at Meridian we made a very significant discovery called El Peñón in Chile. El Peñón to date has mined about 6 million ounces of gold. It's one of the highest grade, longest lived gold mines in Chile. It's still operating today under the guidance of Pan American Silver. They acquired it from Yamana. After that, I ended up in Argentina working for Meridian, and ultimately back in the United States as VP of Exploration for Meridian. And after Yamana bought Meridian in 2007, I ended up as Senior Vice President of Exploration for Yamana, and then ultimately Executive Vice President in charge of Technical Services and Enterprise Strategy. So a long abbreviated version of where I've been, and that explains all the gray hair.
That's a pretty thorough track record in the industry. So you're now CEO of a relatively small, junior, but your company has 1.3 million ounces of gold in resource in a great mining state, great location for mining. You made a new discovery, the Gravel Creek deposit.
Yeah.
Fairly recent, and you actually put out some results from that deposit in the last few months. Can you tell us about the importance of that?
Sure.
For the whole project?
Yeah. We'll start with Gravel Creek in general. It is a new discovery in northern Nevada. It's in the right age, similar to Midas and Sleeper, which are very famous epithermal deposits in northern Nevada. I think we're on to something new, a new district for northern Nevada. But the results we recently put out were just an extension of our Gravel Creek deposit, which currently has a resource of about 800,000 ounces of gold at about 6 gram per ton gold equivalent. But we stepped out about 250 meters to the northeast, and 2 holes we drilled there, and both of them returned at least 9 intersections of epithermal veining in those holes. But more importantly, it connected the dots for a lot of legacy drilling that was there with very high grade. So we've identified 2 sub-parallel veins that are averaging over 25 gram per ton gold equivalent. So a multiple of what the current resource grade is, but immediately adjacent that resource. So we're hopeful that by going and doing additional drilling there, we can connect the dots further and then bring that into the Gravel Creek resource in the short term. And not only bring it into the resource, but with much higher grade than is currently at the resource grade.
So basically, the project has 2 key areas, and the other one is Doby George, which is much closer to surface, and it is in oxides. You put out some met testing, data a couple, I think 5 days ago. Tell us about Doby George, because you have at Gravel Creek much higher grades, but it's deeper. I think the met is a little more challenging there. It's a little more complicated, whereas Doby George is just simple, near surface, and there's room to expand that, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It is right at surface, actually, it outcrops. And Doby George has been known, I would say, since the late 90s. It was discovered by Homestake. So there's over 800 drill holes in Doby George. About 90 of those were completed by Western Exploration. So we decided last year to complete some diamond drilling for metallurgical test work. The results that we got back from that drilling were very positive as far as grade and width go. But more importantly, we used those results to do column leach test work with McClellan Labs in Reno, Nevada. And we just received those results. And it indicates, at a 1/2-inch crush size, we can get at least 72% recovery on a normal cyanide leach. But not only good recovery, but very low reagent consumption, less than 0.4 kilo per metric ton.
And that's lower cost then?
Lower cost. That'll go to the cost scenario of the operation, yes. And very permeable. It doesn't need any agglomeration. So, we've ticked the box at Doby George. I think we've got 550,000 ounces right now in oxide. It is wide open in many directions. So we will go back and do additional drilling, but I think in the short term, we're looking to use that metallurgical information to update the technical report, update the resource, and then move that towards engineering and ultimately a pre-feasibility study.
Okay. So the two deposits, you have room to expand both of them. If I really forced you to make a forward-looking statement here, how much room is there to grow?
Well, again, forward-looking statement, anything can happen. But the fortunate thing we've got in the areas we're exploring now, we've got drilling, and the drilling indicates economic grade. So if we were to connect the dots, we've always said at Gravel Creek, we believe we have potential for 3 million ounces there. I think I still stand by that. Of course, there's risk to that. You never know what Mother Nature's going to give you, but we've got drilling now in this hanging wall area of Gravel Creek that's very positive. It's wide open with other drilling. And then we've got the area between Wood Gulch, which was mined by Homestake, and Gravel Creek, where we've got additional drilling with positive results. So it's not just extending geology with drill results, which I think gives us more certainty that that goal can be achieved. At Doby George, I think we could double the resource. Now, the important thing about Doby George is at the bottom of the design pit, we are starting to see sulfides. So at some point, that mineralization does go into sulfides. It won't all be oxide, but with Gravel Creek being a sulfide deposit, additional sulfide material to Gravel Creek is not going to do us any harm for sure.
Right. So would you think, in a future mining operation, again, very speculative here, would you start with a starter pit at Doby George and then go, deeper, as time goes on?
I think that's the right scenario. And certainly with Doby George being right at surface, all the infrastructure nearby within 5 kilometers, water, power, it's something that a company our size could handle. It's not going to be a project that's going to be capital intensive right out of the gate. So I think we would think about doing that. And certainly as we move towards this pre-feasibility study, that'll give us more certainty to do that. And then looking at Gravel Creek, certainly if we can connect Gravel Creek and Wood Gulch is at surface. So there's the potential to bring mineralization at Gravel Creek closer to surface as well. So I think we've got a lot of area that we can continue to extend mineralization, but more importantly, around the known deposits, bring them closer to surface so that we can get at them earlier.
Okay. And so, I'm a shareholder of the company. What are the timelines here, some catalysts that you expect for the next 12 months?
Well, in the next couple of quarters, we'll be doing that technical report. That'll update the resource at both deposits, Gravel Creek and Doby George. Importantly for Doby George, that will dictate the path forward, what we need to do to get that PFS done. And I think that we're looking to complete it Q4 of this year or Q1 of next year. And then in Q2, we'll start drilling at that new discovery at Gravel Creek. I think with a limited number of drill holes, maybe 10 to 14 drill holes, we could get that into a resource in the short term. So probably by second quarter of next year, if we do that drilling, we get that into a resource, and I think that will be transformational for Gravel Creek. Okay,
great. Just final question. So what do you think you need financially to accomplish those goals, over the next 12 months?
The drilling at Gravel Creek, I think, is going to cost the company about $5 million. That would include getting it into the resource category with that amount of drilling and ultimately updating that. Doby George would require probably a couple $1 million to do some extension drilling and the pre-feasibility study. But I think we'll prioritize at this point the drilling at Gravel Creek before any additional drilling at Doby George. I think we have enough information at Doby George to start that engineering towards a pre-feasibility. So I'd like to get that going and at the same time be doing that extension drilling at Gravel Creek to extend that resource. And I think by the second quarter of 2025, we could have both of those boxes ticked for the company.
Great. And one final question. Tell us about the share structure, the major shareholders, and how many shares do you own, and what's your cost basis on your holdings?
Sure. So we have a very different share structure. I think you've seen that we have a very large shareholder called Golconda. They own about 58% of the company. It's a closed fund that was high net worth individuals and family offices. They were formed in 2013. They recapitalized Western Exploration as a private enterprise, and they contributed about $30 million to exploration between 2013 and 2021 when we went public. That led to the discovery of Gravel Creek and the ultimate technical report that was completed in 2021 that allowed us to go public. So very important shareholders that have been very supportive of the company in the past and can continue to be. And then Agnico Eagle owns 16% of the equity of the company, and they've funded 2 tranches of exploration in the past, one in 2020 and another, or 2017 and another in 2020. And they sit on a technical committee with us, and they assist us with exploration planning. So those are our 2 largest shareholders. We have about 12% of the company held in institutions like Europac with Adrian Day, Oramet, and US Global. I own personally about 400 and some thousand shares, and my cost basis is about $2 Canadian a share.
$2 Canadian. All right. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and thank you for your time, Darcy.
Always a pleasure, Robert. Thank you.
Appreciate it.